committee concluded that there's a very low risk of further international spread of Zika virus as a result of the Olympic and Paralympics, which is already low.
The World Health Organization declaring the risk for international spread of the Zika virus during the Olympic Games is very low, spurning calls to postpone or relocate the Games. This comes despite elevating the virus to a public health emergency. Welcome to your Wednesday lunch break. I'm Tanya Rivero, and joining us now to discuss what all this means for athletes and spectators heading to the Rio Games is Wall Street Journal senior special writer Matthew Futterman. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Some people may be a little confused how the World Health Organization can elevate this to crisis level, but also say the risk is very low.
Well, I think what they're doing is they're elevating the disease itself to a crisis level, but Zika's in 60 countries. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a crisis for Zika in Rio in August, which is the middle of their winter.
Right. Explain the significance of the Games being held in August.
Well, that's the South American winter, even though it's pretty temperate in Rio throughout what is our summer. It's pretty pleasant there. I've been there. It's, in the 60s and 70s for the most part. You might get a hot day in the 80s.
Perfect for athletic events.
Right, perfect for athletic events, especially endurance events. You don't have those steaming temperatures of Beijing and Athens. Mm-hmm. So when the temperatures are cooler, there's fewer mosquitoes out there. I mean, we know you know that from common sense here. There's
Absolutely.
A lot more mosquitoes in the middle of the summer in the Northeast where we live than there is in the dead of winter. Certainly.
Absolutely. And what concrete steps has the Brazilian government been taking to fight the Zika virus?
They're spraying. They're trying to address standing water. One of the problems is I think they've not done a good job of jumping on this quickly. Mm-hmm. And once they did jump on it, explain all the precautions they were taking, and that really sort of hurt them. So while they are taking precautions, and the local organizing committee in the Rio, the organizers are going to be distributing a lot of condoms because this is a sexually transmitted disease. I think they were a little slow to get out in front of all this.
So what are the recommendations then being made to the athletes and tourists visiting Rio for the Games?
So wear bug spray. Mm-hmm. If you're really concerned, wear long sleeves and long pants.
They're advising no one to get pregnant, correct?
Right, exactly. You want to be careful. I mean, the big advice is that if you're pregnant or thinking of getting pregnant, you probably want to skip this Olympics.
Right.
But
Matthew, you are not thinking of having any more children for the time being.
Right, I'm an old guy.
You were talking about this earlier, so you are going without too much fear for your personal safety, correct?
Right, but if it was 15 years ago and I was still having kids, I think my wife would probably say,
you're not going.
You're not going.
And
right?
she lays down the law.
And
you would not be going.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Right.
Do you know of any reporters who are not going?
Sure. We have a reporter who's decided not to go, Savannah Guthrie of NBC. She's not going. She's pregnant. Right. And there's no value judgment on that.
Of course.
You want to put your family first, and you want to put health first. At the same time, for people who are not in that situation, I think it's probably pretty important to not be alarmist. The World Health Organization, they say there is a risk to this disease, but that the risk is really sort of worldwide. Like I said, it's in 60 countries. There's hundreds of cases here in New York already.
What about quickly the athletes themselves? Do we know of any? We know some that had been saying perhaps they were thinking of staying away. Do we know?
There's an American cyclist whose wife is pregnant, TJ Van Garden, and he's not going to be going. Okay. But most of the women I've spoken with, he's the only one who's pulled out. Mm-hmm. And the women I've spoken with are concerned, but they say, as athletes, we really trust that the U.S. Olympic Committee and the International Olympic Committee are going to do everything they can to protect us. And this is their life. This is what they've worked forever for.
This is it.
And they don't want to give that up.
Absolutely. Matthew Futterman, thank you so much for that.
Oh, thanks for having me.